Welcome YouTubers to another episode in my Grammar Hero series. In this video, I'm going to be working out problems from the Mathematics Knowledge Subtest of the Armed Services Vocational Aptitude Battery, that is the ASVAB. Before I do that, however, I just want to make a few comments about the ASVAB itself. First, I want to point out that the ASVAB nowadays is a computer adaptive test for which you'll have 154 minutes to complete 145 questions. In addition to receiving a score for each of its 10 subtests, including general science, arithmetic, reasoning, word knowledge, paragraph comprehension, mathematics knowledge, and so on, you'll also receive what's called an AFQT score. Of course, AFQT stands for Armed Forces Qualification Test, and that score says you're either qualified to join the military or not qualified to join the military. As you can see, the score is broken down in two different ways. Scores are broken down more specifically into ranges as well as categories. So for example, if you score a 31 in terms of your AFQT score, that means you've scored better than 31% of all test takers, and that also places you in corresponding category 3B. As a rule of thumb, you do want to score somewhere between category 3B and category 1. That is, you want to score somewhere between 31 and 99. The reason I always stress that in my videos is this. For each branch of the military, there are minimum scores you do need to obtain before you can enlist. And I know this says minimum ASVAB scores. More specifically, these are minimum AFQT scores. Okay? And as you can see, if you have a high school diploma, you need these scores to enlist in these branches, whereas if you have a GED, you need these scores to enlist in the same branches. Let me stress this final point before we get started. A lot of people stress about the ASVAB because, again, there are minimum requirements and there are 10 subtests. Now, let me put you a little at ease. The AFQT score is calculated based on your performance on only 4 of these subtests, namely arithmetic, reasoning, word knowledge, paragraph comprehension, and mathematics knowledge. So my advice to anyone who's preparing for this test is to study for these 4 subtests and disregard studying for anything else. Again, if you score high on these 4 subtests, you're going to be able to enlist in the branch you desire, and you'll also be able to qualify for the job you also want. So again, don't stress out. Just study these 4 subtests, become very good at all these subtests, and everything else should fall into place for you. One final thing, just this year, ASVAB for Dummies released its 2019 and 2020 version of its study guide. As you can see, it's $7.99 for a book that includes 4 practice tests as well as material that I discuss in all my videos. Consider buying this. You could get away with just watching my videos to prepare for the ASVAB, but in light of the fact that this resource is reasonably priced, I recommend that you go ahead and buy a copy of this if you can. I'll put a link in my description to this book as well as other study materials, so feel free to take a look at those when you get a chance. Alright, so let's go ahead and work out these 16 questions. Again, I'm basically working out a full-length practice test for the mathematics knowledge subtest of the ASVAB. One thing I want to stress is for the ASVAB, you're not allowed to use a reference sheet or a calculator. So in other words, you have to know all the formulas I mentioned in this video, and in addition, you also have to be able to work out all these problems by hand. Again, the hardest part of the ASVAB is doing addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division, including with decimals and fractions. Okay? These problems I picked for this video are not that hard. So this is a good video for you to really get comfortable working on your arithmetic skills. So that said, let's go ahead and get started. First question says 2 points, negative 4.6 and 4.8 are on a number line. What is the distance to the nearest tenth between the 2 points? So since they told us they're on a number line, oops, my pen didn't work there. Let me grab my eraser real quick. Sorry about that. Let's see if I can get my pen working. Okay, good. So since these 2 points are on a number line, let's go ahead and try to solve this one using a little sketch here as a aid. So we're told 1 point is 4.8 and the other one's 4.6. So I'm going to put 4.8 on my number line and work my way back to 4.6. And I'm going to do it in increments of 1. So this is going to be 4 right here. This is going to be 3. This is going to be 2. This could be 1. This could be 0. Negative 1. Negative 2. Negative 3. Negative 4. And negative 4.6. The first thing I'm going to do is find out how far these two are from whole numbers. And as we can see here, to go from 4 to 4.8, that's a distance of 0.8. So I know from here to here is 0.8. And similarly, to go from negative 4.6 to negative 4, I know this is a distance of 0.6. So now that, and again, that's from here to here. Now that I've dealt with the decimals, all I have to do is count out how many spaces there are between negative 4 and positive 4. So let's go ahead and do that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So now I just have to add up these three numbers, namely 8, 0.8, and 0.6. And again, we can put a 0 after these if we want it to. 0 plus 0 plus 0 is 0. 0 plus 8 plus 6. Well, 8 plus 6 is 14, so we have to carry a 1. When you're adding decimals, you simply just drop it down in place, so that's going to go right there. 8 plus 1, of course, is 9, so we know our answer is 9.4 in this case. Okay? This question says Victoria baked a cake and cut it into 36 pieces. Her brother ate 8/9 of the cake. How many pieces were left? So a full cake would have 36 out of 36 pieces, because 36 divided by 36 would be 1, and that would represent one full cake. We're told her brother ate 8/9 of the cake. Again, he ate 8/9, and we want to find out how many pieces were left when he ate 8/9 of the cake. So we're going to do 36 over 36 minus 8 over 9. So now we're dealing with subtraction, including with fractions here. To do subtraction with fractions, you have to make the denominators the same. And to do that, you have to find a common multiple. I know 9 goes into 36, so I'm going to leave 36 over 36 the same. And I'm going to change this denominator from 9 to 36 by multiplying this by 4. And what I do to the denominator, I also have to do to the numerator. So this is going to become 9 times 4 is 36. 8 times 4 is 32. So now we can do this problem. Again, we're subtracting fractions. So we know we don't subtract the denominator. Again, that's the base over which both of them are. But I do have to do 36 minus 32, which is 32, 33, 34, 35, 36. It's just 4. So we can see that if the brother ate 8/9 of the cake, That's the same as 32 out of the 36 slices, which leaves just 4 slices of cake left. Okay. Oops. Let me go back up. This question is asking you, and let me grab my pen. Come on. Don't be difficult today. This question is asking you to find the square root of 81. The square root is basically asking you to find two numbers that multiply by themselves to get this number. So 6 times 6 is 36. That's not 81, so that's not an answer choice. 8 times 8 is 64, so we know that's not an answer choice. 5 times 5 is 25, so we know that's not an answer choice. And 9 times 9 is 81, so we know 9, our C, is the square root of 81. Pretty simple problem there. Alright, this question. If x equals 4, which of the following equations does not result in an integer? So this problem is testing your knowledge of the number system, and the way I like to remember it is this. N, W, I, R. N stands for natural numbers, W stands for whole numbers, I stands for integers, and R stands for rational numbers. You may have seen it like this before. Again, natural numbers. Natural numbers are 1, 2, 3, 4, not including 0. Whole numbers are all the natural numbers plus 0, so 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on. Integers are all natural and whole numbers plus negatives, so basically negative 3, negative 2, negative 1, 0, 1, 2, 3, and so on. And rational numbers are everything. Rational numbers are integers, whole numbers, natural numbers, basically plus fractions. Okay, so like 1/2, 1/3, and so on. These fractions cannot be repeating. Okay, so in this case, we want to find an equation that doesn't result in an integer. Now we know an integer is 0, all the positive numbers and all the negative numbers, excluding fractions. Okay? So if any of these result in a fraction, we know it's not an integer. So basically, I'm going to take 4 and plug it in for x in all these equations. If it's a fraction, we know it's not an integer. So we have 2 times 4 plus 16. 2 times 4, of course, is 8. 8 plus 16 is 24. That's a natural number as well as a whole number. So all whole numbers and natural numbers are integers. So this one passes. Let's go ahead and plug in 4 for x in this second equation. Again, we got 2 times 4 plus 16 divided by 4. 2 times 4 is 8 plus 16 is 24. So this becomes 24 divided by 4, which is just 6. Again, that is a natural, a whole number, as well as an integer. So this passes. 3x squared plus 1. Let's plug in 4, where we see x. Okay. 4 squared is 16, so this becomes 3 times 16 plus 1. 16 times 3 is 6 times 3 is 18. Carry the 1. 3 times 1 is 3 plus 1 is 4. So this is 48 plus 1 are just 49. Again, that is a natural number as well as a whole number. And if it's a natural or whole number, it's also an integer, so that passes. That leaves us with D as the only remaining possibility. So let's go ahead and plug it in. 3 times 4 divided by 5. 3 times 4, of course, is 12 over 5. And since 5 doesn't go into 12 evenly, we're going to have to leave this as a fraction, which, as I mentioned at the beginning of this problem, rational numbers are fractions that don't repeat. And this right here is a fraction, so we're done. We know D is not an integer. It's a rational number. Okay? This question says, if it takes 2 minutes to fill your gas tank 2/3 full, how long does it take to fill it up? So again, we're told it takes 2 minutes to fill it 2/3 of the way. That means it takes you a minute to fill it 1/3, 2 minutes to fill it 2/3, and 3 minutes to fill it 3/3 are full. Again, 3 over 3 is 1, which indicates full. So we know in this case it's going to be 3 minutes. All right. This question says side A of a square measures 4 inches. What is the length of the diagonal? So let's go ahead and draw a little sketch. Again, this is a square. We want to find what the length of this diagonal is. And as we know, all squares have 4 right angles. And the shape we create when we cut the square in half with the diagonal are right triangles. And what's more, we also know that all sides of a square are equal. So we're told this side is 4, therefore this side must be 4, this side must be 4, and this side must be 4. So with all this information, we can solve this problem. Again, if it's easier to see, I'll go ahead and pull out one of the triangles that I'm referring to. This triangle is basically this one or this one, whichever one you see. And now we have to use the Pythagorean theorem to find the measure of the diagonal, because the diagonal, it turns out, is across from the right angle in a right triangle, and this is referred to as the hypotenuse. So we're going to use this formula: a squared plus b squared equals c squared, where a and b refer to the legs of the triangle and c squared refers to the hypotenuse. Again, the hypotenuse is always directly across from the right angle. So in this case, this would be our c, and it would be right here on this square. Okay, and it doesn't matter what you set as a or b. Again, both of these are legs and both of these are legs. As long as you correctly identify the hypotenuse and plug it in, you'll be fine. So let's go ahead and write this down here. Let's go ahead and plug in the legs accordingly. This is 4 squared plus 4 squared. That didn't come out good there. Equals c squared. Again, we're trying to solve for the distance of the diagonal, which is c squared. 4 squared is 16. 4 squared is 16. We're left with c squared. 16 plus 16 is 32 equals c squared. To get rid of this squared, we're going to take the square root of both sides. This crosses out, so we're left with c equals the square root of 32. We see that that's not one of our answer choices, but we do know that our answer choice is more than likely going to have a square root in it. I know the square root of 32 is not 16. The square root of 32 is not 32. And the square root of 32 is not going to be 18 as well. So let's go ahead and work this out right here. Let me show you how to deal with square roots. Basically, I'm going to break this 32 down into 16 times 2, which becomes this. According to the rules of square roots, we can rewrite multiplication inside the square root separately. That is, I can write it like this. Square root is 16 times the square root of 2. And now we all know that the square root of 16 is 4. Left with this multiplied by square root of 2 over there. So we can see the answer is 4 square root 2. Chances are you will see problems on the ASVAB that require you to use the Pythagorean theorem as well as deal with square roots. Alright. This question asks you, what is the sum of prime numbers? Again, a prime number is only divisible by 1 and itself. 10 is not a prime number because both 2 times 5 equals 10 and 1 times 10 equals 10. So we know 10's not prime. 13 is only divisible by 1 in itself, so that is a prime number. 16 can be divisible by 16 and 1. It's also divisible by 4 and 4, so that's not prime. 25 is divisible by 5 and 5, so we know that's not prime. 19 is only divisible by 19 and 1. And 47, similarly, is only divisible by 47 and 1. So we're going to add up these 3 prime numbers, and that will give us our answers. To prepare for the ASVAB, if you want to quickly look up the prime numbers between 1 and 100, that's a good thing to do. That way you can just quickly identify the prime ones and not have to do any math whatsoever. But that said, let's go ahead and add these up. And be careful doing your arithmetic. That's where a lot of people can make mistakes, which will throw the whole problem off. 7 plus 3 is 10, plus 9 is 19. Carry the 1. 4 plus 1 is 5, plus 1 is 6, plus 1 is 7. So we know the answer to this question is 79. Okay, this question asks you to find 1/3 of the cube of 3. So that's going to look like this. 1/3 times 3 cubed. To get this question right, you do have to know how to deal with the order of operations. That is the order in which you work out problems. And to remember that, I always remember PEMDAS. You do what's in parentheses first, then you do exponents, then you do multiplication, division, addition, and subtraction in this order. So in this case, we have parentheses, but there's nothing going on inside of them, so there's nothing to do there. There is an exponent, however, right here. And there is multiplication occurring right here. According to PEMDAS, or the order of operations, we do exponents before we do multiplication. So, in other words, I'm going to work this out first, and then I'm going to deal with this multiplication. And in case you need me to, I'm going to represent 3 cubed as this. 3 times 3 times 3. Again, that's the same as 3 cubed. 3 times 3 is 9, times 3 is 27. So we got 1/3 times 27. Or you can view it like this. This is equivalent 27 divided by 3, which we know is 9. Okay, just make sure to work out these problems in accordance with the order of operations, and you should always get them right. Alright, so this question asks us to find x, given that the square root of 400 equals x squared. So I'm just going to copy the problem off to the side here. A lot of people would make a mistake by taking the square root of this and then trying to square root this at the same time, which you would probably say to yourself, what am I doing? But the key to doing this problem is to know that the square root of 400 is 20. To go ahead and solve this before you address this x squared. And now that I have the square root of 400 as 20, now I can square both sides. This, of course, causes this square to cross out, and we're left with the square root of 20 equals x. I'm just going to flop these to make it easier to read. That's bad, and let me try it again. X equals the square root of 20. And now, as we did just a few minutes ago, we have to reduce this. Let's go ahead and work on that. Again, we're looking for numbers that multiply to 20, one of which is a perfect square. I know 20 has factors 5 times 4. So again, according to the rules regarding square roots, I can take these and rewrite them as this. The square root of 5 times the square root of 4. And at the same time, I know the square root of 4 is 2. So this becomes 2 times the square root of 5, or just 2 square root 5, which is right here. Okay. This question asks you to find 10% of 10% of 100. So let's go ahead and work that out. First thing I'm going to do is find 10% of 100. And to do that, I'm going to multiply 100 times 0.1. Again, 0.1 is the same as 10%. 0.5 is the same as 50%. 0.75 is the same as 75%. 0.01 would be the same as 1%. Okay, so if you need to look up how to convert percents to decimals and vice versa, go ahead and do so, but in general, that's how it's done. And now I have to multiply 100 by 0.1. To multiply anything by a decimal, you take this decimal, you move it to the right 1, and at the very end of the problem, you'll move the decimal place back in 1. So in reality, I'm working out this problem 100 times 1, and albeit with 1 decimal to move back in at the end. So we have 0 times 1 is 0, 0 times 1 is 0, 1 times 1 is 1. Move our decimal back in 1 place. So in other words, 10% of 100 is 10, and the question wants us to find what is 10% of 100. Well, we did 10% of 100, which is 10. Now we got to find 10% of 10, which is the same method. 10 times 0.1. Again, move the decimal to the right 1 place. So this becomes 1 times 10, which is just 10. And add it back in. And we can see 10% of 10 is just 1. So in other words, 10% of 10% of 100 is just 1. Alright, this is a good question. It says the supplement of 30-degree angle is. So for the ASVAB, you do have to know some basic geometric principles. If you take a look at my channel, you'll see that I've mentioned all the formulas you need to know. But as far as angles go, this is what you need to know. When you have two angles that add up, we'll call this angle 1 and angle 2. When you have two angles that add up to 90 degrees, those angles are called complementary angles. And when you have two angles, we'll call this angle 1 and this angle 2. When you have two angles, on the other hand, that add up to 180 degrees, those are referred to as supplementary angles. In this case, we're being asked to find the supplement of 30 degrees. So we have something that looks like this. This one's 30 degrees. We're being asked to find what this angle is. But we know, since this is referred to as a supplement, we know that x plus 30 is going to equal 180 degrees. Again, if it said complement, we know this would be 90, but we're dealing with this case right here. So to solve for x, we're going to subtract both sides by 30. This crosses out. We're left with x equals 180 minus 30 is 150. Again, I did that mentally. If you want me to work it out, I will. Let me see. 180 minus 30. 0 minus 0 is 0. 8 minus 3 is 5. 1 minus nothing is just 1. So that's how we arrived at 150. Again, just know complementary angles add up to 90. Supplementary angles add up to 180. So this is a good question. Y to the 4th times y to the 6th equals. This question is testing your knowledge about the laws of exponents. Sometime this week, I am going to upload a video about the laws of exponents. But that said, this is what the rule it's referring to. A to the m times a to the n equals a to the m plus n. Basically, when you multiply two numbers that have the same base raised to different exponents, you add those exponents. In this case, I can rewrite y to the 4th plus y to the 6th as this, y to the 4th times y to the 6th, which looks like this now. And in that case, we know this is going to equal y to the 4 plus 6, which is the same as y to the 10th. Okay? Again, just testing your knowledge of this product rule for the rules of exponents, or the laws of exponents. Convert 36% to a fraction. To convert percentages to fractions, you simply take those percentages and put them over 100 or place them over 100. So this is placed in a fraction, albeit an unsimplified one. This again is 36%. Now the only thing I have to do is reduce this fraction to get closer to our answer choices. To do that, I'm going to divide top and bottom by 2. 36 divided by 2 is, and let me work this out. I know some of you can do it mentally, but let's work it out since we're practicing for the ASVAB. 2 goes into 3 one time without going over. 2 times 1, of course, is 2. We subtract. 3 minus 2 is 1. Drop down this 6. 2 goes into 16 8 times. 8 times 2 is 16, so we know there's no remainder. So 36 divided by 2 is 18. 100 divided by 2, I'm not going to work out. That's 50. That's not one of our answer choices, so we have to keep reducing this. Let's go ahead and reduce it by another factor of 2. 18 divided by 2, of course, is 9. 50 divided by 2 is 25, which we can see right there is an answer choice. Again, you have to know how to convert percentages to fractions, and again, it's fairly easy. Put it over 100 and reduce accordingly. Alright, so earlier I introduced the concept of supplementary and complementary angles, and now we have a more advanced problem on that topic. It says angle A, and that says angel. I didn't write it, so don't blame me. Angle A is 3 times its supplement, angle B. What is the measurement of angle A? So again, we know that angle A plus angle B is going to be 180, right? And we're told Angle A is 3 times greater than angle B. So if I let angle B be represented as x degrees, I know that A is 3 times greater, so this has to be 3x. And now I can go ahead and plug these into this formula. So this is going to become 3x plus x equals 180. And again, this is angle A here, this is angle B here. 3x plus x is 4x equals 180. We're solving for x at this point, so we're going to divide both sides by 4. Going to cross this out. We're going to do 180 divided by 4. And now we ask ourselves, does 4 go into 1? Doesn't. It's too small. Does 4 go into 16? It does 4 times without going over. 4 times 4, of course, is 16. 18 minus 16 is 2. Drop down this 0. 4 goes into 25 times without going over. 4 times 5, of course, is 20. So there's no remainder. So we know x is equal to 45 degrees. Now we know B is x and A is 3x. So to find A, we actually have to take this 45 and plug it in for x. So this becomes 3 times 45. Let's go ahead and work that out. 5 times 3 is 15, carry the 1. 3 times 4 is 12, plus 1 is 13. So we know that B is 45 degrees, and therefore A must be 135 degrees. Two more problems and we're done. The fourth root of 256 is, so fourth root looks like this. Again, you can take roots as many places as you want. You can have cube root of 256. You can have the square root of 256, and so on. What this is asking is, what number can you multiply by itself 4 times to get you 256? Okay? In other words, it's going to look like this. What number x multiplied by 4 times will be 256? So let's go ahead and think about that. I'm just going to work these problems out like this. I'm going to do 4 times 4 times 4 times 4. And if this equals 256, I know I'm done. So 4 times 4 is 16. Let's do 16 times 4. Off to the side here. 4 times 6 is 24. Carry the 2. 4 times 1 is 4, plus 2 is 6. So 4 times 4 times 4 is 64. Got to multiply that by one final 4 there, so 64 times 4. 4 times 4 is 16, carry the 1. 6 times 4 is 24, plus 1 is 25. So we can see right there that this does equal 256. Therefore, we know the fourth root of 256 is in fact 4. Okay, final problem. Grace answered 14 of the 20 questions correctly. What percentage of the total number of questions was she able to answer correctly? So again, she answered 14 out of 20 correctly. To find the percentage, we can do division, namely 14 divided by 20, or we can reduce this fraction to make it a little easier to see. Before I do any division, I'm going to reduce the top by a factor of 2 and the bottom by a factor of 2. 14 divided by 2, of course, is 7. 20 divided by 2 is 10. And by now, we should all be able to recognize that 7/10 is the same as 0.70, which is the same as 70%. Okay. So that's all I have for you in this video. Again, in light of the fact that this is a really good deal for the ASVAB for Dummies book, and it's the most current edition. I'd recommend you consider purchasing it. But I hope you found this video helpful, and feel free to thumbs it up or leave some positive feedback in the comments section below. But on that note, I'm going to go ahead and cut you loose.
Konnichiwa.